all of this is probably for show. The reality is Putin already played his tricks. He did that before the election and during the election, so he doesn't have to go in there and do any sort of master manipulation. huge, giant, bigly show for you guys today. It's, of course, the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur presiding right here. Anna's gonna join us in the second hour. And in that second hour, we've got a Republican caught playing footsie with another gentleman. He's in the South. How did that turn out? I was led to believe that they were against gay rights. Anyway, and then another Republican in Congress threatening to shoot Republican senators. A Republican congressman threatening to shoot Republican senators. He's particularly incensed at female senators. Oh boy. Okay, and later in this hour, is Bernie Sanders running in 2020? The jury's in, so that's a giant news story. Will Democrats get behind single payer? Interesting evidence on that front. And then how Donald Trump was affected and very close to the Russian laundromat that was being run through the US, particularly New York and Florida, and where those guys happen to live. I mean, should I give you a hint that it might start with the buildings they lived in, might start with the word Trump? Okay, so that's a huge story as well. That's later in this hour. So let's get started right now with a nice, quick, easy one about Mike Pence. So President Trump is desperately looking for allies and people to cover his ass. And boy, have we got the guy for him. It's Mike Pence, his vice president. Now, I'll tell you why I think Pence is doing this in a second. But first, Trump tweeted very recently, "It's very sad that Republicans, even some that were carried over the line on my back, do very little to protect our president." Now, that's preposterous. The job of congressmen are not to protect the president, especially if they wound up colluding with Russia. That is not their job. But he's like, what? Aren't I the mafia boss here? Your job for these capos is to protect me, right? I'm like, hey, Mike, right, Mike? Oh, yeah, yes, boss. So he wrote a giant op-ed about it. Before we get to that, I want to show you who Mike Pence is.
You know, it's the greatest privilege of my life to serve as vice president to a president who cares so deeply about the integrity of America's elections and the right of each and every American.
Furthermore, Mike Pence was with Donald Trump last week when Trump would every once in a while turn to him and go, right, Mike? And he'd be, oh, Here, no. Let's just take a look for ourselves. Here it is. So this is a J.R. Jackson special, and focusing in on Mike Pence as Donald Trump is talking. Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's right, Mr. President. I'm right here next to you, big guy. Can I get an amen? Okay, we're gazing. Give me a couple more nods, though, Mike. I'm going to need more nods. And
I've been saying that, Mike. I think you'll agree for a long time.
We're back to Look, okay, that's right. Who was the Diamond and Lace or something? The two African American women who were supporting Trump. Okay, that's where Mike Pence is right now. So if you're wondering why he's doing it, so that when he becomes president, he could turn around and go, Trump voters, I had your guys back the whole time. Besides which, he's seeing Trump throw one person after another under a bus. Sessions, you didn't support me enough. Your job was to cover up my crimes. You're not doing that well enough. I'm thinking of getting rid of you. Meanwhile, Mike's looking around like, wait, hold up now. Hold up, right? So he writes this op-ed on Fox News, Interesting. He says, in the first 6 months of this administration, President Donald Trump has fought every day to deliver on his promises to the American people. At a historic pace, this president has taken bold action to restore prosperity, keep Americans safe and secure, and hold government accountable. Wait, is this the same president we're seeing on TV? And to tweet all sorts of nonsensical things. Oh, you didn't mention that part. Okay, I don't see how he did any of that, but look, by the way, he is his vice president, I get it. So he says President Trump has signed more than 40 bills and nearly 40 executive orders on everything from healthcare to energy, infrastructure, and more. But look, guys, normal vice presidents don't randomly come out and write op-eds about, do you know how great my president is? Like if they're trying to pass legislation and they want to help in that cause. Sometimes Obama would send Biden to go talk to the senators because he used to be in the Senate. That's a very logical role for the vice president. Random fluffer on Fox News is not an appropriate role for the vice president, and out of nowhere. Why? Because Trump's like, oh, the Russians think they're investigating me, somebody be my buddy. And Mike's like, well, this helps me in a couple of different ways. I'll be your buddy. And so the fluffing continues. As the father of a United States Marine, I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside a president who cares so deeply about the men and women of the armed forces of the United States of America. By the way, in putting together his plan for ISIS, he's like, and Afghanistan as well, he's like, I don't know, I just gave it to the generals. They're like, well, how about that mother of all bombs that we dropped in Afghanistan? Oh, did we? I don't know, I just let the generals do it. He cares so deeply about the troops. He's checking in all the time. More like he's watching Fox and Friends all the time. President Trump's accomplishments, Pence continues, are nothing short of historic. But as President likes to say, at this White House, that's just what we call a good start. What accomplishments? Wait, he didn't get healthcare passed, he didn't get anything passed yet. Look, I don't want him to get those things passed, but that's great news for me. But he doesn't have any accomplishments so far. They're nothing short of historic. Come on, dude. I mean, just are you at all capable of being embarrassed? Because this is one of the most embarrassing things I've read. I'm leaving out 90% of it. We're on issue by issue, and he's like, oh, what he's done for the children, right? And healthcare, the way he stripped it away from millions of Americans or wants to, genius, right? Anyway. President Trump is firmly committed to passing the largest tax cut since the days of President Reagan. We're going to cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses, and family farms. Well, okay, there's the one thing that he's guaranteeing you. It's the same thing I was guaranteeing you. If there's one thing Trump's going to do is cut taxes for the rich, because the Republican Party wins from that, our donors win from that. So that was coming. Family farms. Small businesses. Later, he admits it's trillions of dollars in tax cuts for the corporations. And he ends, of course, as always, on, it is the greatest privilege of my life to serve as vice president to a president who's fighting every single day to restore in America freedom, prosperity, and opportunity for all. Can I stay, Don? Can I please stay? Because I think you're about to leave soon. That would make me president. And Trump voters, if anyone had your guys back, it was me. We get it, Mike, we get it. Bring it down. Okay. We did full-throated defense. And we're bad guys. I'm a bad man. All right, let's go to pardons. Okay. Now, there's no need for Donald Trump to pardon himself. I know that because Donald Trump's been tweeting it all weekend. Okay, but before we get to that, let's find out if maybe there is some issue with Russia, because I'm led to believe by a lot of people on the right and some on the left that there's no evidence of Russian meddling at all. There's no evidence. Really? Last week at the Aspen Security Forum, 4 of Donald Trump's top intelligence and national security officials, including Mike Pompeo, the CIA director, said they were absolutely convinced that the Russians were behind the effort to influence the election. That is not someone from the Obama administration, that is not a Democrat, that is a super hardcore right-winger appointed by Donald Trump, saying absolutely convinced that the Russians meddled. Well, let's go to Dan Coats. He's the National Intelligence Director that puts all those agencies together. Hey, Dan Coats, is there any dissent at all on whether Russia meddled in the elections? Quote, there is no dissent. But why do you think they're doing it? And is this overhyped, not a big deal? Quote, they are trying to undermine Western democracy. That seems like kind of a big deal, okay? So if you're still in the camp of like, no evidence at all, it's just all made up by Democrats. Weird that some of the most virulent right-wingers in the country who were appointed by Trump have joined in that analysis. It's almost as if the intelligence agencies do have evidence. Joe, but they didn't share all their evidence publicly. Maybe the Republicans and Democrats have decided randomly to make everything up and just, yeah, maybe. Well, if you're not concerned by it, you're apparently alone because Donald Trump is. So he then tweets out, it's very sad that some Republicans, it's very sad that Republicans, even some that were carried over the line on my back, do very little to protect their president, okay? So in other words, come on guys, who's got my back here? The guys I appointed, now Sessions is recusing himself. I'm thinking of firing that son of a bitch, his job was to cover up my crimes. And then now Dan Coates and Mike Pompeo, and they all say the Russians meddled in the election. God damn it, I gotta talk about pardons. Then he says, while all agree the US president has the complete power to pardon, why think of that when only crime so far is leaks against us? Fake news. But dude, nobody was talking about pardons until you said it. So I guess he's thinking of pardoning him. So now, like, remember guys, I mean, even if I am super guilty of helping the Russians meddle in this election, I can pardon myself. That's not a winning argument, but he's too stupid to realize that. The only reason to tweet that is be like, I mean, this is all a waste of time. I'll just pardon myself at the end. You know what I'm saying? You idiot, why did you bring that up? You're so stupid. Okay, but that's okay. His lawyer, Jay Sekulow, says pardons are not on the table. Well, curious the president brought it up. Okay, now let's find out if pardons are on the table. Now we next go to Sekulow again. Pardons are not on the table. Let's watch.
I want to be clear on this, George. We have not and continue to not have conversations with the president of the United States regarding pardons. Pardons have not been discussed, and pardons are not on the table. We're not researching the issue because the issue of pardons is not on the table. There's nothing to pardon from.
Okay, how can you, here, we have the quote. Actually, let me go to graphic 14 here. We have, this is from that thing you just saw. We have not, and I continue to not have conversations with the president of the United States about pardons. How do you continue not to have a conversation? Like, we're not talking about pardons. I mean, I don't know who brought up pardons, the president did. I don't know, but that's why I continue to not having conversations about pardons with the president. If you say so, brother. Now let's go to the new communications director, Scaramucci. So I'm sure the Mooch, as he's known, will clarify all this. Let's watch.
So he's talking about pardoning, so who's he thinking of pardoning?
Jake, let's cut through it all, okay? You and I right here, let's cut through it all. You're basically saying that tweet is suggesting that the president is going to pardon himself and every one of his family members.
I asked you.
What are you suggesting?
I'm saying
he's not going to do that.
No, Anthony, I am suggesting one thing. The president tweeted about pardons, and I'm asking you, who's he thinking about pardoning? That's all I'm suggesting.
Hey,
so why raise it?
The president's thinking about pardoning nobody because it has been coming up a lot. There's an undercurrent of nonsensical stuff.
Because he has asked advisors about it.
There's an undercurrent of nonsensical stuff that you brought up. The president tweeted about it. He's like, I mean, I could pardon people. The president has complete power to pardon people, but who's bringing up this nonsense? Who is it? Who is it? I want names. Okay. So, I don't know why you're bringing it up, Jake. All right, finally back to Jay Sekulow, Trump's lawyer. Clearly, the Constitution does vest a plenary pardon power within the presidency. Wait, I thought you guys were not having a conversation about it. That seems like Scaramucci kind of admitted that they were having conversations about it, and you just admitted that you were having conversations about it, and you just doubled down on what President Trump said. Now remember, everybody, I mean, he can pardon anyone he wants, including the president. Now, whether he can actually do that is a different question, besides which, if you're already trying to pardon yourself from horrific crimes committed against the American people, there's a decent chance you're going to get impeached. So just keep that in mind. It's like, oh, God damn it, why didn't anybody tell me about impeachment? You know, the president has the power to stop an impeachment. Actually, no, you don't. You don't have that power. I don't know, why is anybody bringing up this nonsense? He hasn't said that part about the impeachment yet. Hold. So obviously, they're worried that it's so bad that President Trump might have to pardon himself for his own crimes before they lock him up. Lock him up. Forget the presidency. He's worried about crimes that he could be charged with. Damn. I don't see any evidence. What evidence? I don't see it. Oh, so you guys say there's a lot of hyperventilating. I'm not the one doing it, brother. Trump's the one hyperventilating. So you should look into maybe why he's doing that. Okay, so now let's move forward to more from Mooch. Okay. Anthony Scaramucci is the new White House communications director. I already missed Sean Spicer. But this guy's got a bag of tricks too, which I'm greatly amused by. Here's one of my favorite tweets of all time. Scaramucci writes, full transparency, I'm deleting old tweets. Past views evolved and shouldn't be a distraction. I serve POTUS agenda and that's all that matters. I'm not sure you know what the word transparency means. It does not mean you delete everything you've ever written before. See, full transparency could mean the opposite, that you would leave up the things that you wrote before. But only in the Trump White House is like, well, obviously we got full transparency here. Burn everything. Don't leave anything behind. Okay, so why is he concerned? And by the way, you're the communications director for the White House now. You don't know that we can access your old tweets? Deleting them isn't gonna help you at all, let alone all the other things that you've said. In the past, he's called Trump, quote, un-American, damn. And then he said about climate change, the science of climate change is pretty much irrefutable at this point. That's also true. Let's go to the next one, because he said it on many occasions. The science of climate change is pretty much irrefutable at this point, and I find it tragic that so many people in this country believe global warming is some sort of elaborate hoax perpetrated by every credible scientist on the planet. In addition to the whole humanity angle, investing in sustainable energy makes sense from an American national security perspective. So who has called climate change a global hoax before? Oh, right, President Trump. He said it was a hoax invented by the Chinese to try to get an economic advantage. Even his own communications director thinks that's insane. He also said, I don't, on the issue of gun control, Scaramucci said, I don't support that legislation, never had. I have always been for strong gun control laws. Damn, we're gonna come back to that in a second when he's asked about it. He's got a great excuse for it, don't miss that. On another issue, he said, I am not a partisan for gay marriage, against the death penalty, and pro-choice. Whoa. I'm for social inclusion, fiscal responsibility. Well, how about Trump specifically? He said, I don't like the way he talks about women. Oops, this were all, of course, before he was hired by Trump. Wait till you see his new approach to Trump. You're gonna love it. All right, one last one. He said, I voted for Obama. Oh no! I voted for Obama. I think most who have are disappointed he should have focused on jobs and not healthcare. All right, like at this point, he appears to be the most liberal guy in the country. Trust me, he's not. He's for all about Wall Street tax cuts. So he's one of those guys that are in the financial community who are like, look, dude, I don't hate gay people or black people. I just want all the money in the world. Okay, so I want all the advantages to go to the rich, the top, the financial industry. And which monster do I have to support to make that happen? Oh, you hate gays and blacks and women? Well, that's unfortunate, but yeah, I'm voting for you and I'm working for you as long as you give me my goddamn tax cuts. So that's Scaramucci in a nutshell. But wait, now let's be fair. Let's let him speak for himself. Let's go to why he deleted tweets in the first place.
But the truth be told, and this is the reason why I deleted the tweets, Chris, it's a total distraction. It's total nonsense. When I made the decision to take this job, my politics and my political ideas do not matter at all. What matters is that I am subordinating all of that to the president's agenda.
So basically, by the way, that's the kernel of a fair answer. Look, I'm not my own communications director. I'm Trump's communications director, so I'm serving him in that role, so my opinions are not relevant. They're only the opinions of the president. That would have been a perfectly fine answer. But deleting the old tweets doesn't make any sense. So he's basically saying, look, it's all this nonsense, so I just want to get rid of the nonsense. But as with the pardon issue, you're the one who started the nonsense. Nobody else is starting nonsense. You wrote all that stuff. So look, these guys cover up for no damn reason. Sometimes they cover up for a very good reason. But in this case, just say like, yeah, those are my positions. They're not the president's positions. I can't delete them from the record, nor do I want to, but I'm gonna represent the president. Why can't you just say something so simple like that? No, instead, he has to turn around and pretend he loved the president all along when he called him un-American earlier and he didn't like the way that he talked about women, let alone disagreeing with him on all those issues. His new stance is this.
The last 18 months supporting him unyieldingly. I love the guy. We're New Yorkers, and this is my point. I want to finish my point. I love the guy because he's a great person, and he's going to be he is a phenomenal president. He's even going to be a better president. I'm going to be missile-locked on focusing on the president's agenda and helping people to understand the president the way I know him and the way I love him.
See, I deleted all that stuff about how I don't like him. And now that it's to my financial benefit, I love the guy. Oh, daily hug from him. Can't get enough of him. I am missile locked on the president. All right, lastly, gun control issue. He apparently didn't mean that stuff about being for gun control. Listen to how he frames it though, watch this.
And I wanted to put one of them up. In 2012, you tweeted, we, the USA, has 5% of the world's population, but 50% of the world's guns. Enough is enough. It is just common sense to apply more controls. Question, do you still believe that?
Well, okay, so the answer to the question is I'm a pro-Second Amendment person. My dad was a hunter. I've got no problem with that. What I was worried about in 2012 in urban centers, if you don't have a little level of gun control, it could lead to more violence.
Yeah. In other words, when I was saying I was for gun control, I meant for black people. So, I mean, my dad loved to hunt. I'm all for guns. Guns are great for white people. But the urban centers is where we need gun control. Don't worry, Republicans, I'm on your side. Gun control only for them and not for us. So now we get a sense of who Scaramucci really is. He ain't nobody's progressive. And he didn't support Trump all along. He's just thinking, where do I get paid and what terrible thing do I have to say to make sure that money keeps coming in? Okay, now we're very clear on who you are. Okay, I gotta take a break here. When we come back, giant news. Is Bernie Sanders going to run in 2020? We have the answer. Are the Democrats going to fight for single payer? We largely kind of have the answer. I'll give you a lot of details on that. And then if you think all this stuff is bad about Trump, wait till you get a load of his connections to Russian money laundering. Damn, hell of a show. We'll be right back.
Been easy for me. I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life, I was told no.
He said I had small hands. They're not small. I never heard that one before.
I'm super excited because we have different levels of members. They pay $10 a month, but there are some members that pay a little more. Our executive producers, for instance. My favorite thing about executive producers is that we have quarterly calls with them. I love that I'm getting a little transparency and I'm knowing what you guys like and dislike. Ideas on how to improve the show, topics that maybe we haven't heard of yet and you really want us to cover. We have so much respect for you because of the fact that you keep us independent and allow us to be uncensored, unfiltered, without worrying about corporate sponsors breathing down our necks and telling us what we can and can't say. So if you want to be a member, obviously no pressure. You can go ahead and join by going to tytnetwork.com/join. I'm gonna ask some uncomfortable questions. The first topic that I said that we would discuss a little more is masturbation.
And then I was swimming in a hazelnut river.
Are you sure you're not doing mushrooms? Oh my God, I can achieve an orgasm by myself.
Fuck that, I am gonna talk about it because there should be no shame around. I think a lot about death because I love life.
That openness led to amazing sex.
And I keep saying to everybody, I gotta go call my wife. I figured that was a good excuse and people can't say, hey, don't call your wife. I'm gonna release bliss.
It's so weird because at that moment I felt bliss and it smelled like lavender.
At the end you get to go check, nice job. If you're a member of the Young Turks, you too will rock the world. All right, guys, I got a giant show for you. I will get to tweets later in the program. Let's get going. Let's talk about Trump and the Russians. Okay. There's a new article out in the New Republic which summarizes the work of a lot of other publications as well, Financial Times, New York Times, etc., as you'll see in a second. It is about Donald Trump's connection to Russian money laundering. So it is not necessarily about what happened in this election. It gives you background on how long Trump has been dealing with the Russians and to what extent and what illicit activities happened in his towers, connected to his businesses. So Craig Unger, who wrote the article, says, look, there's no smoking gun right now. And so hence a lot of people defending Trump will go, okay, well, that's it then, none of it matters at all. Now, listen, watch the whole thing, and if you think it doesn't matter, okay, that's fine. But understand that it is very unlikely that at any point from 1987, when Donald Trump started working with the Russians, to now, that Donald Trump would write an email, let alone an email that we could discover right now without the help of prosecutors who are working on it, where he would say, oh, by the way, I will allow Russian mobsters to launder money through my casinos and hotels. That smoking gun is an unlikely event. So the way you put together a case is by looking at the context, the totality, and yes, you have to look at circumstantial evidence, okay? Circumstantial evidence doesn't mean that it's not evidence. That's why the word evidence is in the phrase. It just means that there isn't something direct telling you, I, Donald Trump, did do these shady deals. So you judge for yourself. Let's dive into it and see what you think. Unger explains, even without an investigation by Congress or a special prosecutor, there's much we already know about the president's debt to Russia. Well, that's interesting. Let's find out about it. A review of public record reveals a clear and disturbing pattern. Trump owes much of his business success, and by extension his presidency, to a flow of highly suspicious money from Russia. Now, we're gonna give you details on that. You don't have to take his word for it. Over the past 3 decades, at least 13 people with known or alleged links to Russian mobsters or oligarchs have owned, lived in, and even run criminal activities out of Trump Tower and other Trump properties. Now, if you say, look, 13 guys with links to Russian mobsters happen to be in some of his properties, he's got a lot of properties, I'm not sure that that's enough. Well, if it was 1 or 2, that'd obviously be a coincidence. 13 seems pretty high. Hold, it's actually dozens of Russian alleged links to Russian mobsters that are all over his properties. Those are just the 13 that we know for a fact were brought up on charges. Okay, so now let's go through more of this. Many used his apartments and casinos to launder untold millions in dirty money. Others provided Trump with lucrative branding deals that required no investment on his part. Well, that seems curious, doesn't it? Do people just come up to you and give you free money for no reason at all? Unless, of course, you're doing something for them. A prosecutor from the Reagan days, this has been going on a long time, Kenneth McCallion, former assistant US attorney, again, for deeply Republican Ronald Reagan, said about the Russians, quote, they saved his bacon. So if it wasn't for the Russians, Reagan prosecutors think that Trump would have been done for. Fascinating. Back to the New Republic. It's entirely possible that Trump was never more than a convenient patsy for Russian oligarchs and mobsters, with his casinos and condos providing an easy pass-through for their illicit riches. At the very least, with his constant need for a new infusion of cash and his well-documented troubles with creditors, Trump made an easy mark for anyone looking to launder money. So there, Craig Unger is being way too generous with President Trump because he went bankrupt 6 times. He is an absolutely incompetent businessman. And in the midst of one of his bankruptcies that Unger explains in the longer piece, and by the way, we'll have a link to it in the description box, so you should read it for yourself, get all the evidence on it. He's in a world of trouble, and all of a sudden Russians come in and rush in and buy a bunch of apartments in the new building that he's building, and all of a sudden he's back to not in trouble. And so he might have gone under right then and there. Now you think he, as overall hundreds of Russians and dozens of them connected to Russian mobsters are buying up his properties, he's just, oh golly gee, I didn't know that was happening. Did the Russians come in and do that? Oh, I'm just an easy mark. Okay, that is an unlikely answer. The only way that he doesn't know is if he's the most clueless businessman in the world. Given how unintelligent he is, there is some chance of that, okay? But overall, you'll see here that there's just so much, there's a mountain of evidence connecting him. He knew what was going on. So now, if you're unconvinced by reporters saying it, well, let's go to one of the Trump family members, Donald Trump Jr. Back in 2008, of course, knucklehead that he is, he doesn't know that he's supposed to be covering this up. So he says, quote, Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of a lot of our assets. We see a lot of money pouring in from Russia. Oops. So if you're looking for a connection to Russian money, well, you don't have to trust me, just ask Don Trump Jr., because he said it in public. The other son also talked about how the golf courses that they own were also financed by the Russians. Oops, number two. All right, well, if they're just living in his towers and they're laundering money and maybe, golly gee, he doesn't know. But what if they're using his assets for it? What if it was already proven? In 2015, the Taj Mahal, owned by Trump, was fined $10 million, the highest penalty ever levied by the feds against the casino, and admitted to having, quote, willfully violated anti-money laundering regulations for years. So it's not a matter in dispute. They already admitted that they knew they willfully violated these provisions to launder money through Trump's Taj Mahal. Okay, the only way you can't see what's happening here is if you don't want to see what's happening. So now let's go to his other properties. Throughout the 1990s, untold millions from the former Soviet Union flowed into Trump's luxury developments and Atlantic City casinos. But all the money wasn't enough to save Trump from his own failings as a businessman. He owed $4 billion to more than 70 banks, with a mind-boggling $800 million of it personally guaranteed. He learned that lesson the hard way. Later, he stopped personally guaranteeing it because he realized, oh damn, I'm such a stupid business guy. If I guarantee it myself again, I'll bankrupt myself as well as all the businesses that I have bankrupted. But so he's in a hole here, he's in a lot of trouble. So what happens next? As Bloomberg Businessweek reported earlier this year, it wasn't long before 1/3 of the units on the new tower that Trump was building, the priciest floors, had been snatched up, either by individual buyers from the former Soviet Union or by limited liability companies connected to Russia. Now, if you're saying, hey, Cenk, that was back in the 1990s, what does that have to do with today? Remember, Trump keeps saying, I've never done business with Russia. I don't know what you're talking about, Russia. I don't have any connections to Russia. You've had connections with them for decades. And they saved your bacon when you needed it most, partly by buying up all those apartments. And if you're wondering, well, does his connection to Putin go back that far? One of the guys who turned evidence against the Russian mobsters said that their connection to Putin went back to 1994 and 95. So these two players have been at it for a long time. Now let's go to one of the Trump World Tower sales agents, Deborah Stotz. She said, we had big buyers from Russia and Ukraine and Kazakhstan. Funny how they all decided to launder their money. I mean, buy properties in that Trump Tower, wait, it winds up being in almost all the Trump properties. Trump had found his market, they explained. After Trump World Tower opened, Sotheby's International Realty teamed up with a Russian real estate company to make a big sales push for the property in Russia. The tower full of oligarchs, as Bloomberg called it, became a model for Trump's projects going forward. So now he's like, I got it, man. You just launder their money, you look aside, and they buy up these properties for me. They save my ass. It's a win-win for me. Maybe it's illegal to funnel that money out of Russia. Not my business, that's their business. Okay, by the way, if you do business with them, it actually is your business. Dolly Lenz, a New York real estate broker, told USA Today that she sold some 65 units in Trump World Tower to the Russians. A local broker told the Washington Post, look at all these different organizations that have reported on this throughout the years, that 1/3 of the 500 apartments he'd sold went to Russian speakers. So many bought Trump-branded apartments. In fact, the area became known as Little Moscow. Now, look guys, selling to Russian speakers, there's nothing wrong with that. And if it turned out that he sold to not 500 but 5,000 Russian speakers, but none of them had any connection to organized crime and nobody had ever been busted for money laundering, of course, that's perfectly fine. It would be weird to discriminate against Russians. That's not the issue here. Hundreds sold to Russians, dozens of them connected to crime. Those are the ones that are just proven, and the ones that are being looked at by the feds, etc. Different stages of the investigations for those. So when you put those two together, you go, oh. If you still say, no, it's all wild coincidence. Okay, hey, listen, man, have at it, Hoss. You just want to see no evil, hear no evil, that's your problem, not mine. So let's go to now Sunny Isles. That's in basically Miami Beach. That's another tower. This one Trump didn't build, but he put his name on it and got money out of it. According to a Reuters investigation, in March, at least 63 buyers with Russian addresses or passports spent $98 million on Trump's properties in South Florida. What's more, another 1/3 of the units, more than 700 in all, were bought by shadowy shell companies that conceal the true owners. You don't conceal the true owners if you're looking to do legitimate business. You do it when you need to move money in and out. And by the way, if you're wondering, how does this game work? And it's not just Russia that does it. There's a lot of folks from China and the Gulf that do it too, let alone all across the world. If you are crooked and you've gotten ill-gotten gains from your people in whichever country you live in, you got to get that money out because you don't want to get it stuck there when the next guy comes in, finds out how crooked you are, well then he could seize all your assets. But if you wash the money through America and you buy properties, then you go, what assets? What are you talking? No, I got nothing to do with that. I got all these legitimate things here in America. And so if you overpay, it doesn't even really matter because you're just trying to get the money out of the country. So now, again, there's credible reports about the Chinese doing this in LA, New York, etc., but they're not connected to Trump. The Russians are very, very, very clearly connected to Trump, and he'd have to be at best enormously oblivious, but the fact that they did it through Taj Mahal, the fact that his family admits that the money comes from Russia shows you he's not oblivious, he's part of this. So last October, an investigation by the Miami Herald found that at least 13 buyers in the Florida's complex have been the target of government investigations, either personally or through their companies, including, quote, members of a Russian-American organized crime group. So that's 13 guys that the feds are investigating in just one of his buildings. And that doesn't even include the shell companies. Two buyers in Sunny Isles, Anatoly Golubchik and Michael Saul, were convicted for taking part in a massive international gambling and money laundering syndicate that was run out of Trump Tower in New York. The ring, according to the FBI, was operating under the protection of the Russian mafia. So connected to two different Trump buildings, running it out of his towers. Trump Soho is now a new tower in New York. Trump Soho was the brainchild of two development companies, Bayrock Group LLC and Sapper Organization, run by a pair of wealthy folks that came in from Russia, actually from the former Soviet Union, who had done business with some of Russia's richest and most notorious oligarchs. Together, their firms made Trump an offer he couldn't refuse. The developers would finance and build Trump Soho themselves. In return for lending his name to the project, Trump would get 18% of the profits without putting up any of his own money. Now, that's a hell of a deal. A couple of guys from Russia come over and they go, don't worry, Donald, we put your name on it. You don't worry about who we sell to, okay? We give you 18%. Now, look, his name does have value. He can get a certain percentage for putting his name on. 18% is awfully high. Why is it high? Partly to look the other way. Now, if it turns out nobody in that tower did anything wrong, and the guys that he made the deals with didn't do anything wrong, you go, okay, well, maybe it sounds high to me, but okay, I guess it's 18% you get for the name. Good luck getting that deal if you're anyone but guys dealing with here, that you're dealing with here. Okay, so let's look into the guys who he did the deal with and see if anything's wrong. Buckle up. This is first about Tamer Sapper. You know, we told you about Sapper Organization. It's one of the two groups that he did this Trump Soho deal with. Well, Sapper, his big break came when he co-founded a company that sold high-tech electronics, according to the FBI. Sapper's partner in the firm was a, quote, member or associate of Ivankov's mob in Brighton Beach. No charges were ever filed, and Sapper denied having any mob ties. That's the FBI saying that it was a member or associate of the Russian mob. But Sapper says, oh, I never heard of the Russian mob. Why, what another coincidence. Unbelievable. Yes, quite literally unbelievable. All right, Sapper says it didn't happen. Everything was done in the most legitimate way. Okay, so that's one of the partners. The other guy, the other company was Bayrock. This sounds normal. Let's find out about Bayrock. Bayrock and its deals quickly became mired in controversy. Of course they did. Forbes and other publications reported that the company was financed by a notoriously corrupt group of oligarchs known as the Trio. That sounds great. In 2010, Arif, who runs Bayrock, was arrested by Turkish prosecutors and charged with setting up a prostitution ring after he was found aboard a boat chartered by one of the Trio with 9 young women, 2 of whom were 16 years old. Well, Turkish authorities were shocked to find out that those 9 women did not want to talk to the authorities. If you're involved in a prostitution ring with the Russian mob, you're not very likely to talk. So he skates out of that one. Now let's go to more. There's a lawsuit filed against them. According to a lawsuit filed by that same year by 2 former Bayrock executives. So these are guys who had inside knowledge of what happened at Bayrock. Arif started the firm backed by the oligarchs and money they stole from the Russian people. In addition, the suit alleges Bayrock was, quote, substantially and covertly mob-owned and operated. Another shocking coincidence for about the 108th time in a row that Trump did a deal with both sides being connected to Russian mobsters. Boy, golly geez, got some bad luck. More about Bayrock. The company's real purpose, the executives claim, was to develop hugely expensive properties bearing the Trump brand and then use the projects to launder money and evade taxes. Last year, after examining the title deeds, bank records, and court documents, the Financial Times concluded that Trump Soho had multiple ties to an alleged international money laundering network. Now, remind me again how there's no evidence connecting Trump and the Russians. If you just care to look a little bit, there's a mountain of evidence. What they turned that relationship into in 2016 is a different question. But anyone who tells you Trump is not connected to the Russians doesn't know one fact about this case. Okay, now, we haven't even gotten to the worst guy yet. Okay, during his collaboration with Bayrock, Trump also became close to the man who ran the firm's daily operations, a twice convicted felon with family ties to Semyon Mogilevich. I'm going to get back to Semyon in a second because he's the boss of bosses in the Russian mafia. But they're talking about Felix Sater in this case, who's connected to Semyon. So in 1998, Sater pleaded guilty to racketeering, operating a pump and dump stock fraud in partnership with alleged Russian mobsters that bilked investors of at least $40 million to avoid present time. Sater turned informer, but according to a lawsuit against Bayrock, he also resumed his old tricks. By 2003, the suit alleges Sater contributed to the majority of Bayrock's shares and proceeded to use the firm to launder hundreds of millions of dollars while skimming and extorting millions more. So I don't want you to get confused. That's not the same guy. That's 3 different guys from just the Trump Soho deal, which are different than the 13 guys the feds were investigating in the Sunny Isles deal, which are different than the dozens of guys some of whom were arrested and investigated in Trump Towers, Trump World Tower, and the list goes on. So when there's Tamir Sepper, Tevfik Arif, and Felix Sater in the Soho deal. So let's find out more about Sater and his connections to Trump, because one of the defenses they'll make is, oh, no. These guys are tangential. They have no direct connection to me. Okay, great. By Sater's account, in sworn testimony, he was very tight with Trump. He flew to Colorado with him, accompanied Donald Jr. and Ivanka on a trip to Moscow at Trump's invitation, and met with Trump's inner circle, quote, constantly. In Trump Tower, he often dropped by Trump's office to pitch business ideas. He said, quote, just me and him. When they asked Trump about this, well, the guy seems to know everything about you. You guys were constantly talking business. You did do business with him. You did a whole Trump Soho thing with him. He says, I don't know him very well. But I don't think he was connected to the mafia. No, wait. Which one is it? You don't know him very well, or he's not connected to the mafia? If you ask me about Jim Jablowski, is he connected to the mafia? I'd be like, I don't know Jim Jablowski. I wouldn't say I don't know Jim Jablowski, but I definitely know he's not connected to the mafia. Wouldn't that be an incredibly weird thing to say if you don't know the guy? I think maybe you know the guy a little bit, and then you certainly know he is connected. Well, let's find out if he's connected or not. In 2010, Sater was even given an official Trump organization business card that read, Felix H. Sater, senior advisor to Donald Trump. Sater didn't make that up on his own. The Trump organization gave it to him. Trump's like, oh, Sater. So who's Sater? I don't know Sater, but he's definitely not guilty. He's definitely not guilty. I don't know Sater though. Here, Sater, have a card saying you're a senior advisor to me. There's no evidence connecting Trump to the Russians. Are you kidding me? There is an iceberg of evidence. Okay, now let's go to Unit 63A. This is in a different building now, okay? It's unbelievable. In addition, Unit 63A, a condo directly below one owned by Trump. So this is Trump Tower, it's directly underneath him. Served as the headquarters for a sophisticated money laundering scheme that moved an estimated $100 million out of the former Soviet Union through shell companies in Cyprus and into investments in the United States. The entire operation, prosecutors say, was working under the protection of Alexander Totkanov, whom the FBI identified as a top Russian vor, that is a made man, closely aligned with, oh, there he is again, Semyon Mogilevich. Sorry for the horrible pronunciations of the Russian names, but let's remember, by the way, they're running through shell companies in Cyprus. You wanna know who ran the Bank of Cyprus? Wilbur Ross, Commerce Secretary for Donald Trump. What an unbelievable coincidence. Yet another one. Sanctions against Russia affected mainly one company in America in a $500 billion deal, ExxonMobil. The CEO of ExxonMobil, oh, Rex Tillerson, the new Secretary of State. Rex Tillerson now says, well, if we're not lifting sanctions, I might leave. Gee, I wonder why Rex Tillerson was there. I can't quite figure it out. Okay, so it does come all the way to present day. By the way, if you're wondering who Mogilevich is, real quick, at the top of the sprawling criminal enterprise was Semyon Mogilevich. Beginning in the early 1980s, according to the FBI, the short, squat Ukrainian was the key money laundering contact for the Solzhenskaya Bratva, or Brotherhood, one of the richest criminal syndicates in the world. Trump is so dirty. His whole enterprise is built on this dirt. All right, so now let's go back to the final mobster that was mentioned there, Totkanov, okay? So they find out that he's doing illegal money laundering, he runs, and he's in the wind. In Unit 63A, they arrested everybody but the top guy there, and they can't find him. So for the next 7 months, the Russian crime boss fell off the radar of the Interpol, which had issued a red alert. Then in November 2013, he suddenly appeared live on international television. Sitting in the audience at the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow, Totkanov was in the VIP section, just a few seats away from the pageant owner, Donald Trump. What Russians? Well, I don't know, what do you mean Russians? When they asked Trump about the Russians, he said, I tweeted out that I have no dealings with Russia. You have no dealings with Russia? He has all the dealings in the world with Russia. Read the New Republic piece. Go and read the links to all those other articles from Reuters, Financial Times, Bloomberg. There is all the evidence in the world that Trump and Russia have been doing business, and yes, very much illicit money laundering business for a long, long time. Now, whether they can prove that today will determine whether Donald Trump finishes his term, and whether it affected the 2016 election will be the critical question. But did he have dealings with Russia? Duh. Abso-freaking-lutely. All right, we'll be right back with, hey, is Bernie Sanders running in 2020? We have the answer when we return.
they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad.
Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
I just remember thinking, what is this guy's name?
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this? The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power.
We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world.
We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
And Phil and host beat CNN and headline news combined. At some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut-up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, you won't believe the meeting that I just had.
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
They want him off the air.
Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, did they change the icon for Vine? I can't find it.
Nerds rule the world. Nerds rule the world. Nerds rule the world. Nerds rule the world.
Welcome to the nerd life.
Welcome to Nerd Alert, everyone. We have an exciting show for you this week.
Glad to communicate with all the nerds out there.
What's beautiful about geeks is geeks are open to everybody. That's the thing. It's like, so you got your thing, I got my thing. It's like, and if you're not, then you're a bad geek.
Why did you choose Battlestar Galactica? Because it's awesome? No kidding. The floor is not lava. Yoshi! And there's one very special characteristic that many men have been interested in. Penis size. What's up, friend?
Yeah, I know that curve.
And that movie is the Valentine's Day romantic classic, Deadpool.
Whoa, wait a second, Doc. You mean to tell me that this is a nerd alert? That's right, Marty. We've entered a nerd alert.
Isn't that right? How can you improve pizza? With math, of course.
If we spilled goldfish crackers on the floor and we didn't want to clean them up, so we thought that if we stomped on them an infinite amount of times, they would mathematically cease to exist.
We are ready for a Wonder Woman movie. Oh, wait, no, let me correct myself. We were ready for a Wonder Woman movie years ago.
I'm Joss Whedon, and you're watching Nerd Alert.
Back on the Young Turks, a couple of quick tweets for you. Hashtag TYT Live. Not a Democrat writes in with a picture actually of a cute little kid saying she's excited Uncle Cenk Uygur is on and watching the Young Turks on TV. God bless her heart. Ryan Zephyr writes, no wonder Trump talks like a mobster. He's been around them in his buildings. That's, by the way, just the Russian mobsters. We didn't even get into his connection to the Italian mobsters. That's a whole different show. And yes, that's who he's been doing business with. He is super dirty. He didn't make, look, there's two ways that Trump made money. One is he inherited $200 million from his dad. And then after he bungled that, he went and worked with mobsters. That allegedly, you just saw the story, okay? Anyway, Tom Zawacki, why is it no matter how dirty you are, money seems to wash all the stink away? Well, that's exactly right, Tom, and that's the problem. So America, obsessed with money, looks at Trump, goes, I don't care that he got it from his dad. I don't care that all these dozens of mob connections. You know, one of his lawyers, the one that threatened to beat up the guy who wrote him an innocent email, we did that story about a week ago. He represents 5 of the top 6, not Russian, Italian mob families in New York, and it's Trump's lawyer. But as long as you're rich, hey, you're on The Apprentice. Go tell us how you made the money. If he told you the truth, he'd be like, all right, welcome to The Apprentice. Now what you do is you make deals with both Russian and Italian mobsters. Wait, did I say that out loud? Anyways, all right, now let's turn to the Democrats. Okay. So, interesting news coming out of the Hill and many other places. Senator Bernie Sanders, they explain, who battled Hillary Clinton in the 2016 Democratic primary and created a revolutionary movement among millennials, is having discussions about running for president again.
You're a bitch for leaving.
Okay, I don't know, that was supposed to be fireworks. Okay, all right. So let's give you more details. Jeff Weaver, former Bernie Sanders campaign manager, saying, quote, he's keeping the door open. Bernie Sanders associate saying, is he considering running for president? Quote, yes is the answer. How's that for clear? That same associate continues. He thinks he's earned the right to run again, and he believes if he would have been the Democratic candidate, he would have won against Trump. Given that he had a 12-point lead on election day, that certainly is far more likely than what happened with Hillary Clinton. There's no doubt about that. One more quote from that same associate. The last thing he's going to do is step aside and let Joe Biden take it. So, of course, why should he? He's the most popular politician in the country. On what planet should the most popular guy step aside for people who are less popular? That doesn't make any sense at all in the context of politics. But to be fair, there is that age issue. Whereas Joe Biden's a spring chicken. Oh no, right, Joe Biden's only 1 year younger than Bernie Sanders. So if you think Bernie Sanders shouldn't run because of age, you should immediately pressure Joe Biden to get out of the race. Funny how no one is doing that. Isn't that weird? How no one brings up Joe Biden's age, even though they're pretty much the same age? Huh. It's almost like they don't like Bernie Sanders and are making up excuses, almost. I've got more on that in a little bit. But is he running? Well, there's a lot of telltale signs. Earlier this month, he traveled to Iowa for the first time since losing the state's caucuses to Clinton during the Democratic primary. He gave a keynote address at an event sponsored by the Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement. Look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that you go to Iowa if you're running for president. No one else goes to Iowa. Kidding, good people of Iowa, I'm kidding. Anyway, so Sanders goes to Iowa. Then, next month, he'll return to the state again to promote his book, Bernie Sanders, Guide to Political Revolution. That is running for president 101. You go to Iowa, you come up with a new book. He just wrote Our Revolution, he's got a new book. He's running for president, it's super obvious. And they're not trying to hide it. Larry Cohen, top advisor to Bernie Sanders for a long time, now with Our Revolution, says, I can speak for the millions of people who supported him and saying, we would love it if he runs again, and we're hopeful he'll run again. So that is very normal, and that doesn't necessarily give you the mindset of Bernie Sanders, but it certainly says that if he were to run again, his top advisors and the millions of people who were fond of him are likely to support him. That's why the Democratic establishment is in a panic right now. Another Bernie Sanders associate says he's keeping almost the same schedule that a presidential candidate would keep. He's doing more travel, more rallies, more for the DNC than anyone else. Yes, now remember the old excuse for why they didn't want Bernie Sanders was, I mean, he's an independent, he's not even a Democrat. What has he ever done for the Democratic Party? Well, right now, no one has gone to more campaign events for other Democrats than Bernie Sanders has. So if you don't think Bernie Sanders has done enough for the Democratic Party, then you think no one has done enough for the Democratic Party. It would disqualify every person in the race. These are all nonsense excuses because they don't want him running, okay? Speaking of which, we get to more of the nonsense. The Hill says, still, the decision by Sanders to run for the Democratic nomination in 2016 as an independent is a sore spot for some Democrats. There are also Clinton supporters who believe Sanders deserves some of the blame for Clinton's loss to Trump. You know who deserves a little bit more of the blame? Those same Clinton supporters who ran her campaign and lost to Donald Trump. Remember, Bernie Sanders didn't run against Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton did. You know who deserves the blame? Hillary Clinton. Look, I wouldn't bring it up and rub it in. I mean, she's off in the woods. I don't care about her anymore. But all these guys put out anonymous hatchet pieces in the press about, Bernie Sanders, maybe he was the one at fault. You ran the campaign. You're the one who lost to Donald Trump. We told you to step aside and you didn't. Instead you said, no, Bernie's got to step aside. He has a better chance of winning against Trump, so he should step aside. It never made any sense. In every poll Bernie Sanders did better against Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton did for about 100 polls in a row. I reported almost all of them on the show during the primaries. And every pundit who loved Hillary Clinton, every Democratic establishment figure is like, I don't see the polls, I don't see the polls. All of a sudden they turned Republican and didn't believe in polls. Oh, you never know, you never know. Yeah, but I do know that she does worse, thereby endangering the Democratic Party in the country, but they didn't listen. Now he's the most popular guy. Still, no, maybe it was his fault. Yeah. There are also Democrats looking for fresh faces, such as Senator Kamala Harris, the freshman California senator with a growing national presence. I have not talked about her much on the show. I want to be fair to her and do more research before I come to an opinion on her. But let's just say that internally here for a long time, I've been saying the establishment's got their candidate. It's Kamala Harris. Okay, so more on her later, but right now I don't have anything against her. We'll do some research, find out. But here's what I know. Most of the Democratic donors are like, yes, Kamala Harris. She could beat Bernie Sanders. I mean, it could be anybody. I don't know what you mean. Okay, so now they're looking for fresh faces. That's funny. I was told just a year ago that no, we don't go with anyone who's new. We go with tried and true. You go with Hillary Clinton because she's been here for decades. You go for the person that has been here for decades, the clear leader of the Democratic Party. So anyone who's challenging her should get out of the race. Get out of the race. Now all of a sudden, we've got a leader of the Democratic Party and a leader in the polls countrywide. All of a sudden, everybody's looking for fresh faces. Hey, who wants to enter the primary? Everybody, we're looking for people to enter the primary. I thought you said primaries were bad for the Democratic Party. All of a sudden, primaries are great. Anybody to beat Bernie Sanders. Please, let's primary the hell out of this guy. I thought you said it would hurt our candidate if we primaried people. Look at their rank hypocrisy. And all these papers, they drive me crazy and on TV as well, they just print it without giving it one thought. Hey, anonymous source who tells me that Kamala Harris is great and we need fresh faces. Didn't you just tell me a year ago that we don't need fresh faces and we gotta go with the people who are in the Democratic Party like Hillary Clinton, who are the establishment? Didn't you just tell me that? What happened to fresh faces when Hillary Clinton was running? Aren't you a goddamn liar? Okay, fine, you're a reporter, you don't want to say that. At least point out the hypocrisy. But you're great at taking notes from anonymous Democratic establishment sources. Anyway, at least one strategist was willing to go on the record, Brad Bannon. Now remember, Democratic consultants, they get rich even if Democrats lose. Either way, they're hired. And even, Trump won. You need more Democratic consultants to resist. But if Bernie Sanders wins and he gets money out of politics, all those consultants are out of a job. Oh no. Brad Bannon says, feel we'd be better off if we started from scratch and ran someone completely new. And I think there's an argument for that. It seems to me that if you're running against someone like Trump, you want someone who can run unencumbered and isn't part of the usual crowd. Are you kidding me? That's what we said a year ago. You said, no, it's really important that we have Hillary Clinton who's completely and utterly encumbered and is the usual crowd. You turned around right away. And we need someone unencumbered. I just found that out because my livelihood depends on it. I would like to continue the corruption we've got going on in Washington. Bernie would end it. All of a sudden, we need someone unencumbered and not part of the usual crowd. Boy, that is awfully convenient, isn't it? Total and utter nonsense. They see Bernie Sanders coming like a freight train. A lot of us who supported him say, hell yeah, when do we get on board? For those guys, they think, oh no, anything but Bernie Sanders, because he's gonna end our corruption gravy train. Goddamn right he is. And that's why we like him, that's why we back him, and that's why he is the most popular politician in the country. And if you actually cared about the Democratic Party, if you actually wanted to resist Donald Trump, you wouldn't be putting hatchets in the back of the most popular guy in the country who's on your side. You would be helping him. But you don't care about the Democratic Party. You don't care about resisting Trump. You never cared about beating Trump. That's why you ran a candidate we told you was encumbered and had terrible polling, but you did it anyway because you wanted to get rich off of her. And now that Bernie Sanders is likely to run, almost certainly going to run, you're scared to death that he's going to overturn your apple cart. To which I say, can't wait. All right, now let's turn to the Democrats and what they're up to these days. Well, we've got mixed news on this one, okay? So it turns out the Democratic Party, after losing to Donald Trump at a 37% approval rating on the day of the election, realized, oops, we might be doing something wrong. Oh right, we also lost the House and the Senate and 69 out of the 99 state legislatures. Oh right, we're total miserable failures. Let's find out why. It's not a real earnest effort because they're still gonna do what their donors say, but let's take a look here. Associated Press reports, Democrats think of themselves as the party of working people and were surprised when Trump was able to steal working class voters from them. They subsequently figured out that voters don't know what the party stands for, and the new effort is aimed at changing that. So they've got a new effort. So you were surprised to find out that you work for your donors and the voters don't like that. Okay, well, we told you and you told us to shut up and go away and that we should just bow our heads to the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton. Okay, well, I'm glad you found out. So what are you gonna do about it? Let's go to Chuck Schumer on This Week.
We're going to have tomorrow a very novel idea of how to create 10 million jobs. There are 10 million Americans looking for good paying jobs. We're going to show them how to find them. And that's just the beginning. Week after week, month after month, we're going to roll out specific pieces here that are quite different than the Democratic Party you heard in the past. We were too cautious. We were too namby-pamby. This is sharp, bold, and will appeal to both the old Obama coalition, let's say the young lady who's just getting out of college, and the Democratic voters who deserted us for Trump, the blue-collar worker.
Some may wonder
economics, George, is our strength.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. I'd love to have 10 million more people working. Devil's in the details. So are you going to fight for $15 minimum wage? Well, that's a layup. That's super easy. At this point, the whole country's headed in that direction. I didn't see it in the plan. I might have missed it, but watching the press conference, it's just like, oh, we're gonna get you training, we're gonna get you help, blah, 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 blah. No, tell me how you're gonna create the 10 million jobs. Okay, all right, that's jobs, but overall, I'll kind of take it we're on the right road. Let's find out about healthcare. What's their plans there?
Something else that Republicans have often supported, which is reinsurance proposed by Tom Carper and Tim Kaine. And Claire McCaskill's proposed something in the Bexar counties, B-A-R-E. If you can't get insurance in those counties, you can get the same kind of health insurance we get. Then we're going to look at broader things. Single payer is one of them.
So that is on the table?
Medicare, well, sure, many things are on the table. Medicare for people above 55 is on the table. A buy-in to Medicare is on the table. Buy-in to Medicaid is on the table. On the broader issues, we will start examining them once we stabilize the system.
So mixed news there. Look, I love that he's talking about a Medicare buy-in. I love that he's talking about Medicare for bringing that down from 65 to 55 so you guys can be part of it. I think we should all be part of Medicare. And I love that we got Chuck Schumer to say the word single payer on national television. That, well done, that's you guys. I'm gonna explain in a second why that's you guys and how you got that done, because there is a real story behind that. On the other hand, on the table doesn't really mean I support it. it means think about it and propose something less. Let's keep it real. And then at the end, he said Democrats and Republicans who will have different ideas should sit down and talk about how we can improve the healthcare system. No, not interested. So what are you going to agree to with the Republicans? I've seen all of their proposals on healthcare. None of them lead to more coverage or lower prices, except for the rich and the young who are healthy, or lower premiums, or more things covered in your insurance. So what are you talking to Republicans for? No, if you think Republicans are going to agree with you on single payer or Medicare for all, they're not going to agree to any of that. So after all the talk about all the wonderful things you're going to do, then you turn around at the end. I hope he's just saying it as a talking point, like, oh, sure, I'm bipartisan. But if he means it, and at the end you go and compromise with Donald Trump on healthcare, that is so far removed from single payer, it's preposterous. So I don't know if they've learned any lessons. So I have a simple idea. Let us buy into Medicare. For God's sake, it's not only the right thing to do, look at how popular it is. The Economist and YouGov did a poll. They asked, are you in favor of federally funded health insurance system covering every American? Government-run healthcare, federally funded. The Republicans tell me that's going to be unpopular, right? Wrong. 61% say they're in favor of that. 61% want federally funded health insurance. How easy is it, Chuck, to go on TV and go, yeah, I'm in favor of what 61% of Americans want? That's a layup. Maybe, kind of, but I'll negotiate with Trump. Oh, okay. How about Medicare for all? The very specific proposal Bernie Sanders has, John Conyers has in the House, Medicare for all. Well, again, Republicans say, American people don't want that. Wrong. 60% say yes, we want Medicare for all, with a lot of them being strongly in favor of that. Look, you know what Medicare polls at? If it sucked, then we wouldn't want it. It turns out it works pretty damn well. It polls at 77%. 77%. Let us in. Let us in. You've got a government program that is incredibly popular, that's working well, does keep costs low. In fact, if you allow us to negotiate drug prices, which to be fair to Schumer and the Democrats, they say we should do. That was actually one of their best proposals. If you allow us to do that, Medicare would be even cheaper. Let us in, let us in. So these, like the Democrats, I mean, he talks about not being namby-pamby, and then he takes a tiny little step towards maybe we can think about single payer being on the table, okay? So like I told you, there are Democrats who are much bolder. John Conyers introduced Medicare for all in the House, and then Just Democrats jumped in, and so did the nurses union, and we shot up the number of co-sponsors that it has. Here's John Conyers' tweet thanking the people that were involved. We now have 80 co-sponsors for HR 676, Medicare for all. Thank you for all the support. Our work is not done yet, and he thanks Just Democrats and the nurses there. And so that was when they were at 80. They started at 72, went to 80. He was very excited. You know how many co-sponsors they have now? 115. You guys did that. You know, because Just Democrats, what is it? All it is you guys, Just Democrats said, hey, you should support Medicare for all, Conyers' bill, and we did a petition on that. You guys signed the petition, and then you went and asked your congressman. And all of a sudden the congressmen were like, we're put on the spot. We should obviously be for Medicare for all. Medicare polls at 77%. Okay, fine, I'm a co-sponsor. Look, anybody who comes, great. I don't care how you came, wonderful, we'd love to have you, okay? And the other thing is, all of a sudden, Just Democrats running primaries against Democrats. And look at this, the guys who tell us primaries are no good, they're like, yeah, I might lose. Yeah, Medicare for all, of course, Medicare for all, sure. You did that. You got Chuck Schumer to say single payer is on the table, which he hasn't said before, so great work, keep going, justdemocrats.com. Make sure you got more co-sponsors on that bill. Make sure we got all the Democrats in the House on that side. And in the Senate, there's only a couple of senators right now, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and some others are flirting with it. We need a lot more co-sponsors in the Senate, so keep on going. By the way, if the Democrats are looking for ideas, don't worry, we have them. Go to justdemocrats.com/progress. So this is the summer of progress. And by the way, this is not just Justice Democrats. This is also Our Revolution, and 17 groups overall. So they have very specific ideas, 8 different ideas on exactly what we should do for the Democratic Party, and they are not unclear. And one of them is definitely Medicare for all, a $15 minimum wage. Not namby-pamby talk, very specific talk. 17 kick-ass progressive groups working together saying these are our ideas. So go check out what those ideas are, sign that petition, and send a message to the rest of the Democrats. Stand up, stand up. In fact, last thing for you guys. This Thursday, if you're in Washington, D.C., there's a press conference that John Conyers is going to, Ro Khanna's going to, Just Democrats are putting together. It's at Capitol View at 400. Here's the address, 444 North Capitol Street Northwest. It's at 11 a.m. Eastern on Thursday, this Thursday. Go there, show your support, put pressure on Democratic congressmen to do the right thing and to support Medicare for all. Let us into Medicare. Final word goes to Ro Khanna, who's gonna be at that press conference. He says, what the first person who runs in 2020 ought to say to Donald Trump is, you promised the American people more benefits, less costs, more coverage, and you didn't deliver. You know as well as we know that the answer is single payer. So why are you not supporting Medicare for all? That's a great attack and a great message. And as I showed you, the polling indicates that is absolutely right. So Democrats, if you're looking for ideas, we got plenty of them. So let's all get together and fight for the right causes and specific causes. No more loose talk, get real. And step 1 is stand up for Medicare for all. Let us in, Young Turks. TYT's partnering with Participant Media to help solve the climate crisis. Wouldn't that be great? Now look, you gotta check out our series, 10 Days of Action, to learn more about what you can do to make a difference. And go see an inconvenient sequel, Truth to Power in theaters in New York and LA on July 28th and nationwide August 4th. If President Trump won't lead, we should. The American people have to do it. The majority of Americans, civic leaders, mayors, governors, businesses, they're already moving forward to stop climate change. So no single person can stop us. I pledge to join the movement and hashtag #BeInconvenient. Go to inconvenientsequel.com/action to be part of the solution. I got a bunch of things to go through. No Republican would have ever voted for Bernie. He would have done worse than Hillary Clinton.
They're so miserable. All right, I'm gonna stop myself before I say things that are offensive.
If I ran for office, and that would be a trippy day, right? I'd break even more rules than Trump. If I had all the money in the world, I would enjoy that.
We have a great show for you. Steve's answer is C. Dave's is A, and the correct answer is, of course, B. You guys are the worst. Here's the story, and it's not funny. Steve is over too.
It seems just comically unfair and ridiculous. The Democratic Party just sucks right now. It just sucks because it doesn't know what it stands for.
We should probably wrap it up.
Turks, check you, Casper. Casper's in the house.
Hey.
Well, now that was exciting right there. That was
super exciting.
Okay, Norma GP writes in, if Bernie's running, is he going to run as an independent Democrat or Justice Democrat? Ooh, good question. No, he's going to run as a Democrat. There's no question about it. And whether he runs as a Justice Democrat is, I guess, a separate issue. That would be awesome. But let's, one thing at a time, okay? But he won't run as independent. He has every right to run as a Democrat, and it's much better to go that way because it's easier. Pat Trago writes in, doesn't matter who else runs, if Bernie runs, game over. Everybody thinks that race in 2020 is going to be super exciting. And if Bernie doesn't run, they are right. It'll be heart attack city, man. Boy, that'll be a hell of an unbelievable race on the Democratic side in 2020. If Bernie runs, there's some chance it's already over. And that the establishment was like, oh, no way, that'd be ridiculous. Do you know that we need fresh faces? Anyway, that's why we need Joe Biden. Look, there's nothing wrong with Joe Biden, but he ain't a fresh face, and he's as old as Bernie is. Anyway, RJ 2151 writes in, if the DNC does not support Senator Warren or Senator Sanders in 2020 primaries, they will lose again. Fair enough. Knowledge Sachs says about the new Democratic slogan, a better deal? What is this, Taco Bell deals after dark? Actually, they're comparing it to a Papa John's slogan. Something about better ingredients, better pizza. So they got so much heat for that they changed it. They're like, did we just say better deals? We meant better deals, better jobs, better wages, better savings, something else, something longer. Better pepperoni. Get specific, get specific. Anyway, Casper, what's up?
All right. Members of the House are furious considering the fact that the Senate failed to pass their version of a replacement plan for the Affordable Care Act. And Representative Blake Farenthold from Texas made his frustrations clear while he was talking to a local radio show host by the name of Bob Jones. In fact, he was so frustrated that he decided to bring up the issue of possibly dueling senators who refused to vote in favor of the replacement plan. If you don't believe me, hear what he had to say.
The fact that the Senate does not have the courage to do some of the things that every Republican in the Senate promised to do is just absolutely repugnant to me. Some of the people that are opposed to this, there are some female senators from the Northeast. If it was a guy from South Texas, I might ask him to step outside and settle this Aaron Burr style.
Okay, so let's just clarify a couple of things. First of all, the duel between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton was one that involved guns. So he's talking about shooting other Republicans and killing them. So when we talk about violence, we're talking about violence. This guy just talked about, let's go shoot each other in the streets. Why did you bring up female senators? That's from the Northeast. That's not even true. Susan Collins is from the Northeast. Lisa Murkowski is from Alaska. That's the Northeast of Russia. Okay, so he doesn't even have his facts straight, of course. And now a side note, Farenthold looks like a human representation of Pepe the Frog. Okay, and so here he comes all of a sudden like, man, they didn't have the courage, maybe we should shoot him. And it's not a matter of courage. It's a matter that they don't agree with you. So Susan Collins, there's a lot of things that I don't agree with her on. I don't agree with 90% of her policies. But in this case, she thinks 22 million people losing health insurance sucks. And she doesn't want to support that. She's not as much of a monster as you are. She thinks cutting money for Planned Parenthood is not the right way to go. That would hurt a lot of women and people overall in the country. And she's not in favor of that. That doesn't mean she lacks courage. She should be shot in the face.
Isn't it more courageous to actually represent the best interests of your voters and look out for them instead of just playing party politics and siding with senators who are going to vote against the best interests of their constituents? I mean, you're talking about courage. I mean, and then okay, so there's that part of it, right? And then there's this like constant talk about shooting and things like that coming from the right. And this is right after Scalise got shot and is still in the hospital. Are we gonna change our rhetoric ever, or are they just gonna continue on with this nonsense? Like, oh, you're such a tough guy. Like, yeah, I'm gonna take him outside and like, go after him. Aaron Burr style. I can't even believe that he said that. But maybe I should. Maybe I'm super naive. This rhetoric just keeps getting worse. And they think it's cute. They think it's funny. He thinks he's a tough guy. I don't know.
So, two last things about it. One, they said, Bernie Sanders at fault for the Scalise shooting. But Bernie Sanders has espoused nonviolence from day one and has said it 1,000,000 times over, right? This guy, can you imagine if Bernie Sanders said, maybe we should shoot Republicans we disagree with? Aaron Burr style.
Well, Republicans would latch onto that and they wouldn't let it go. It would be something that they would mention every single day until Bernie Sanders has, left the building, no longer has a political career. That's the difference between Republicans and Democrats, right? Republicans, no messaging. They will use anything and everything for the purposes of their propaganda, whereas Democrats will let stuff slide. This guy talks about shooting people that he disagrees with politically. Not even from the other side, the other political party, but from his own party because they refuse to vote for something that goes against the best interests of their constituents. Guess what? That's what lawmakers are supposed to do. I know we're so far removed from that, where lawmakers just vote based on corporate interests, their donors, and everything other than their constituents. But I actually give these Republican senators a lot of credit for their courage of representing their constituents instead of just siding with a political party.
And by the way, those are the moderate Republican senators, so-called, couple of them, right? But actually, conservative senators are the ones who killed the bill. They said it was not draconian enough. They didn't say they used the word draconian, but they said, no, there should be more freedom, more tax cuts for the rich, and less Medicaid support, so less coverage for Americans. So, and there were more men than women who voted that way or were gonna vote that way in the Republican Party. So, again, here's a Republican randomly picking out female Republican senators and going, it's their fault when there's only 2 of them, and there were so many more, and the guys who killed it were Senators Lee and Moran. After they said they weren't gonna vote for it, that's when it died. But he doesn't focus on the guys, he focuses on the women to attack.
And look, I don't care what gender he focuses on. John and I discussed this on a day when you were out. The House is furious right now that they passed their version of a crappy healthcare replacement bill, right? And of course, their asses are on the line as a result of that, politically speaking. And the Senate didn't do the same. And so they're like, wait, but it's like, okay, so you were stupid enough to do it, and now you're angry that senators weren't stupid enough to do it? Take responsibility for your own actions.
And if you think it's such a great bill, then why aren't you incredibly proud of it? You should,
exactly.
If you actually believed in the bill, you say like, those poor senators, they're not gonna get the political advantage I'm gonna get.
Right.
But instead, you know that your bill is a disaster and the American people hate it. And in the last poll that I saw from a couple of days ago, 20% are in favor of your bill, 57% are against it. That's almost a 3-to-1 margin. That's how much they hate your bill. You know who you should blame for that? Not anybody else. You voted for it because you wanted to get more tax cuts for your donors. Sad day for you that you put together a bill that everybody in the country hates. That's not on anybody but you. So if you're, all right. I'll leave it at that.
Let's move on to other stuff. One of the main reasons why the US government spends so much money on defense is because of the fact that private manufacturers and private companies get contracts that are extremely expensive, when in reality we could just be supplying certain things without having to deal with these contracts. Well, here is a specific example of government waste, wasted money that comes from us, taxpayers, that goes toward nonsense in the Middle East specifically. So the Pentagon is now having to answer to this, what I consider scandal involving uniforms that were purchased for Afghan soldiers, okay? So I'm gonna show you this report and then I'm gonna give you more details into what really happened. Take a look.
The Pentagon has apparently spent $28 million on forced camouflage Afghanistan military uniforms rather than give them other patterns that cost nothing. USA Today says the forced pattern is privately owned, whereas other camouflage schemes owned by the US government are free. A 17-page report noted that forests cover only 2.1% of Afghanistan's total land area, making the woodland camo highly ineffective in most scenarios.
Not only did they spend more money than they needed to on these uniforms for these Afghan soldiers, they purchased uniforms that aren't even effective, that wouldn't actually camouflage them because they're not fighting in the forest, they're fighting in desert terrain.
So there's a couple parts of this story that are infuriating, and the full video that you saw will be in a link in the description box. So $28 million at a minimum for purchasing those specific uniforms, gone. You just threw $28 million in the garbage.
But you know, we waste a lot of money on public education and healthcare and entitlements, right? That's where we really need to focus.
You want to look for waste? Look at the Pentagon. They throw $28 million in the garbage before you know what hit you. So those camouflage uniforms actually do the opposite. If you're in desert terrain and you're wearing those bright green outfits, you're gonna stick out like a sore thumb. It's gonna get people killed on top of the money that you wasted. And this is the most infuriating part, was a no bid contract. Why? We've been in the middle of Afghanistan for what, like 16 years now? Where's the emergency? Remember when Dick Cheney first told us, oh no, we got to do no bid contracts because I hate capitalism. I mean, I love capitalism, but I just want to give contracts to my friends.
That's right.
Without any competition. So, because they said, it's an emergency, we got to act right away. So this is a 16-year emergency? There's no emergency here for how to buy more uniforms in Afghanistan. You just wanted to make somebody that you know rich. I don't know who did it and how they benefited from that company, but somebody definitely benefited in an outrageous way here.
Think about it. The US government could have supplied those uniforms and it would have costed us nothing. But instead, they chose to spend or waste $28 million on ineffective camo gear that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
And by the way, that's the latest.
That's the latest, yes.
Since 2007, we've spent $93 million on 1.3 million uniforms for just Afghan soldiers. Simply by using a camouflage pattern owned but not currently used by the US military, we could have saved taxpayers $71 million. 71 million in the garbage, but no, we don't have money for education. We don't have money for healthcare because we had to buy the wrong uniform so somebody can get rich over here in the US.
You guys, we fall for it time and time again. I mean, it's amazing. They're master manipulators in Congress, the executive branch. They're master manipulators because they convince us to focus on fighting each other while the people at the top are giving out these lucrative contracts to their wealthy buddies, right? That's where our taxpayer money is being wasted. It's not being wasted on entitlements, which, by the way, we funded, we paid into. Every time I look at my paycheck, I see how much of that goes toward Medicare, how much of that goes toward, Social Security, all of these programs that, again, we're paying into. So don't let them point at us and make it seem as though we're the bad guys because we actually want to get the benefits that we paid into. Those are not the issues here. The issue is the real waste happening with the Pentagon, with military spending, with defense spending. It's all BS, and don't make them convince you that it's all in the name of national security.
So they do this all the time. TransDigm's another defense contractor that is now going around and doing basically what the pharmaceutical companies do. They're buying people down the food chain and then pretending there's competition, but in fact they own both of the companies. So there's no real competition, and they jack up the prices in the military, and the military is sitting there going, bee, 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 bee. So that's a monopoly. And now finally there's some investigation. I can give you more updates on that later, but TransDigm's another one that we're gonna look at. Another even much larger waste of money. Congressman Ro Khanna started inquiring into that in the first place, and now that investigation is growing louder and louder, as it should. And final fact for you guys that are maddening. When Bernie Sanders was running, they told him, no, your plan of like $70 billion for free college education so that people can live the American dream, so that middle class kids could have the same chance as rich kids? No, unaffordable, no way, can't do it. Do you know how much we've spent to train and equip Afghan security forces? $66 billion. And how's that working out for us? So now Defense Secretary James Mattis says, oh no, we have to send thousands of more American troops because the Afghan troops can't fight on their own. After we wasted $66 billion, then they tell us there's no money for your kids' education or healthcare. It's gross.
All right, one more story before we go to break. The DOJ is likely to plan a crackdown on marijuana, both medicinal and recreational marijuana. And that is according to new reports about Donald Trump's task force on crime reduction and public safety. Now, that task force is due to release a report soon indicating how they plan on tackling crime in America. But task force subcommittees will undertake a review of existing policies in areas of charging, sentencing, and marijuana to ensure consistency with the department's overall strategy on reducing violent crime with administration goals and priorities. Now that is a statement from Jeff Sessions, who of course is the head of the DOJ, and he has been on the record countless times talking about how terrible he thinks marijuana is, how the federal government needs to crack down on states that have legalized marijuana. Sessions sent a letter in May asking congressional leaders to do away with an amendment to the DOJ budget prohibiting the agency from using federal funds to prevent states from implementing their own state laws that authorize the use, distribution, possession, and cultivation of medical marijuana. So I have more details on this. And interestingly enough, the only thing that could save us from this nonsense is the fact that Trump has seemed to kind of turn on Jeff Sessions. So who knows? It seems like Jeff Sessions might be on his way out. And who knows if that's going to have any type of positive impact on this particular issue.
So let's talk about their current plan, and then maybe a little bit of hope that this guy gets fired for all the wrong reasons, of course.
Right.
So that means if your state legalized marijuana, they're like, I don't care, we're going to come prosecute you anyway. 8 states have already legalized marijuana for recreational purposes. 21 states additionally have said for medical marijuana. They're like, oh, your state decided, states' rights. Jeff Sessions and the Southern Republicans nonstop talk about states' rights because they want to take away black people's rights. Then they go, but the state of Alabama has every right in the world to treat blacks any way they like. Okay. Right. Now, when you say 29 states also have states' rights to do as their voters demanded in their democracy. Now, you don't have any states' rights. We're just messing around. We just hate black people. So we want to imprison them for marijuana, and we want to take away their rights in the South. States' rights is just a gimmick.
So let me jump in real quick, because while I do agree that the issue of states' rights only seems to be raised when it's convenient for those on the right, the reality is, and this is another thing that kind of gives me a little bit of hope. Everybody loves marijuana, okay? It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, doesn't matter if you're a Republican. Everyone loves marijuana. A lot of people from both political parties use marijuana. And so, look, this is anecdotal, but I was curious to see what right-wing commentary on this story would be. And based on a lot of comments that I read, a lot of right-wingers were like, no, this is a states' rights issue. Don't touch my marijuana.
Yeah, I know. Now that they're getting high, all of a sudden they're back on this issue. But Scalia, and for decades and decades, conservatives were openly hypocritical. I don't give a damn about states' rights if I want to take your rights away. And if I want to take your rights away, then I'm going to use states' rights as a prop. So, okay, for Republicans like Jeff Sessions, who now say they don't care about how your state voted, they are never, ever allowed to say states' rights again because they don't believe it. Now, that gets worse. So they want to explore use of asset forfeiture more.
Right, they want to amplify civil asset forfeiture, which you guys know what that is. That's when authorities will seize and possess your property and your money in an investigation if they suspect that you either possess or are trafficking drugs. And a lot of times, innocent people get caught up in this. And even if they've never been charged, they were never convicted of anything, there's no wrongdoing whatsoever, they have a very difficult time getting their property and their money back because it costs resources to go to court and demand that stuff back.
You don't automatically get your stuff back if you're not even charged. You have to go out of your way to try to convince the government to give you your stuff back. In over 90% of the cases, they never get it back. So if your car has legal medical marijuana in 29 out of the 50 states, and the federal cops come in, they go, well, legal to you, illegal to me. I'm taking the marijuana and I'm taking your car. And 90% of the time, you won't get it back. Jesus, can you imagine if they stole your car? And that's what it would be. It is a theft by the American government from American citizens. By the way, they can come into your house. You can have legal marijuana in your house. They'll take your house. They're stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from you because you had a legal joint in your house. This is a crime against the American people.
Absolutely.
That's who Jeff Sessions and these backwards Republicans are.
And I think the most shocking part about all of this is the fact that the Keebler elf doesn't use marijuana. Like, wouldn't you think that the Keebler elf would be like smoking pot while baking his cookies? I don't know.
But you know how Republicans are. You think he doesn't use it? Who knows?
There's no way he does, because I feel like that would change him real quick.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, Anna, there's no way all those anti-gay rights Republicans are actually gay.
No, I know, but marijuana does things to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look,
Maybe
there's no
not.
end to their hypocrisy. But so, one last thing here. New Orleans Police Department superintendent, former superintendent, and co-chairman of Law Enforcement Leaders to Reduce Crime and Incarceration said, look, what are we doing running after marijuana for? He's like, that's not what's causing the violence and the crime. He said, we know what it is. It's crack, powdered cocaine, heroin, and opioids. He's not, he's not soft on crime. He's like, those drugs do cause crime, and we should go after them. But you're telling me to take resources away from that and put it into marijuana, which is legal in these 29 states, and chase after that and go grab people's property doing it. This is crazy. So, look, if Jeff Sessions gets fired by Trump, it is not because of this. Trump doesn't mind this at all. He said that he would leave the states alone on this issue. As always, Trump's a pathological liar and lied about it and put Sessions in place knowing exactly what he's gonna do. Trump would only get rid of Sessions because Sessions has not covered up his crimes on the Russian front. That's what he's mad about. But this, if he did, he got rid of Sessions, it would be the one good thing coming out of the Russian collusion story.
That's true.
So, but if for the moment being, this is the Republicans' guy, he's the standard bearer, he's the attorney general. So if you don't want, your right to smoke marijuana taken away as a free American and citizen, well then vote against Republicans, because there aren't Democrats doing this. It is the only people left in politics who are on this side now, pretty much, are the Republican Party. So if you vote for them and you put Jeff Sessions in place, well, then don't come crying to us because we told you he'd do it. Okay, we got to take a break here. Guys, you got to panic, by the way, not on the marijuana thing, although that too. Free membership is about to run out. I think this is the last week. So go to tytnetwork.com/join. You can still get a free month, but you got to sign up within this week and put in the promo code FREETYT. It makes it sound like you got to free us. You get all the show. If you missed any part of it, you could download it, you could stream it, no ads, and you get all the network shows, and you'll get the fun post games and old school and aggressive progressive. So don't miss out last week for this offer, okay? We'll be right back.
TYT is unique in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna ask some uncomfortable questions.
I feel like I missed
out.
So what is going on?
If I don't eat, my head's gonna explode.
As I take my shirt off, just goes, is that your body?
Now we move to inappropriate story number 2.
I just never felt guilty about masturbation.
It's amazing.
I could take partial credit for opening up your sexuality.
I was the kid in the pool with the shirt off. Let's just call it what it is. I was that kid.
Well, you deal with the bitch side of it, right? But you're my boss, so that's what happens.
I think we're more likely to win. They do see it from a frame of the rich and the powerful, and they don't realize that.
The last time that happened, we elected Abraham Lincoln.
I don't know, wouldn't it be wonderful if we unfucked the world?
You and I are a disaster.
Don't stereotype all cops, don't stereotype all anything.
Blowing up like Dave Kohler on Twitter.
That's pretty good progress.
I didn't know you could leave positive comments.
It's a very TYT thing. I'll tell you a whole bunch of depressing stuff so that at the end I can give you hope. Winning is, in terms of change and positive change, is not just possible, it's inevitable.
Great time to be alive.
Let's burn this mother down, huh? Is that what you're saying?
Fuck it, let's go do it. And that's why I keep thanking you guys for being members. Because together, we got their attention.
Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay strong.
rather lose to Republicans than have a progressive win with them. That's how dumb the corporate Democrats are.
It's the Democrats who lull you to sleep, and at the end of the day, they're the ones who push the right-wing agenda.
Most of the people are either unemployed, underemployed, or fucked.
This is why you lost to Trump, you fucking moron. What the fuck is wrong with you? Whoever wrote that, I'm sure they were typing with one hand and going like this with you. The Democrats are dead. The way you feel right now, that's how a chump feels. Do not freak out.
Back on the Young Turks, members of the day are Philip Keller and Robert Dolschall. And members get all the post games. We got one coming up for you guys today. They're always fun and exciting. TYTnetwork.com/join. You know it's the last week. Put in promo code free TYT to get a month of membership free. David Guarneri writes in on YouTube Super Chat. Look, if you're listening to us on YouTube, use a Super Chat. We're much more likely to read your comments. Trump's White House has no proper executive administration. He says they're a glorified crew. And given the mob story that I did in the first hour, you seem to have a good point there. Chris Bradshaw wrote in, I would rather see this, I love this, referring to Fahrenholt. I would rather see this tough guy challenge someone to a 100-meter dash. I can't. Okay. That wrestling guy says, thanks, Anna, for saying what I've been saying for years. It's not an entitlement when you pay into it every day of your life.
Yeah.
And what I've been saying a long time, even before Anna, was it's called an entitlement because you're entitled to it because it's your fucking money.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, let's keep going.
All right. A GOP official from Kentucky has been arrested for indecent exposure in Tennessee and also resisting arrest. David Naramore is his name, and apparently an employee from the Belk department store contacted police when Naramore rubbed his foot while sitting in the bathroom stall next to him and then proceeded to expose his genitals.
Let's hold.
Okay.
So I didn't know this is how folks rolled. So this, like, I imagine this is the same thing Larry Craig did, the Republican senator.
Yes. I remembered Larry Craig during this story.
So the wide stance. He said, no, I'm not I'm not playing footsie. I have a wide stance, and it went into his stall. So they're doing it with the feet, right? I mean, he's not on the ground like rubbing his foot.
I finally, look, life is full of dots, right? And it is your job to connect those dots. So dot number 1, Republicans think that you can't allow transgendered individuals to use the bathroom that they identify with because of sexual assault. Dot number 2, there's a number of GOP officials and politicians who have gotten caught doing questionable things in men's bathrooms. Oh, I get it, connect the dots. Since they do crazy stuff like this, they think that people, like bathrooms are just like breeding grounds for sexual assault. Look, by the way, I don't know if connecting the dot there really makes all that much sense because it's not like there's a ton of cases with Republican men doing this. But
these are only the guys who got caught.
Because it doesn't even, look, it doesn't even cross my mind to do anything of that nature ever in a bathroom or anywhere. But
no, I think you're really onto it, Hannah. Like to me, I'm like, why would a trans person assault you in a bathroom? Why does that make any sense? Like it
so
never
weird.
even occurred to me. But a lot of these guys are going into bathrooms and feeling guys up underneath the stall. So then they think like, if I do it, like of course trans are gonna do it. And remember, they're at a minimum bisexual here. And so they think, oh, I guess other people in the spectrum would do like I would. No, but they're not closeted. They don't hate themselves. They don't need to go assault people in a bathroom. No, but they can live freely. You don't live free, and you're like, oh my God, what if somebody catches me being gay? So I'm gonna grab onto a dude's foot in the middle of the bathroom.
No, this is insane. It's insane. It's so incredibly ballsy. No pun intended, right? Because we're talking about, in both the Larry Craig story and this story, we're talking about people in individual bathroom stalls, and then we're talking about one person being the aggressor without even seeing that other individual's face, right?
And the exposing of the genitals, I don't even know how that happened. Did he do it over the top? Did he do it under the bottom? Did he sling it around?
Don't know. Don't want to know. It just happened. So at that point, the employee called the authorities and managed to keep Naramore restrained, subdued until the authorities show up. Then the authorities show up and he's resisting arrest. And so they end up tasing him. The taser did not work. And at that point, the cop punched him in the face to subdue him, and that didn't work. And then several other cops had to get involved just to restrain him. And so he ended up getting arrested, and he will face charges. But it's crazy. He served as a member of the state executive committee of the state's Republican Party in Kentucky, as well as the Letcher Council or county chairman. So he is involved in politics, GOP politics in his state. It's just crazy how this story all went down.
So when black folks resist, they are said to be resisting arrest. These thugs, why don't you just listen to the cops? When the cops come, you know what you do? You just surrender. That's what you do. You just listen to their orders. This guy, they're tasing him. He's like, whatevs. They punch him in the face. He's like, no, I don't think so. So then they got to tackle him to the ground. Look, if these guys weren't giant hypocrites, it would be a sad story. It would be about how this guy is desperately looking for love in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
I mean,
look,
literally.
There's that part of it, but also this isn't about a guy, a Republican guy who's making moves on another man. This is also someone who did something that's clearly illegal. He exposed his genitals to a complete stranger. You can't do that. That's indecent exposure. So
yeah,
that's actual indecent exposure. Just whipping your dick out. You can't do that.
So next time you hear Republicans talking about, oh my God, we can't have any gay rights at all and worried about what's happening in the bathrooms, think like, wait, why are they worried about what's happening in the bathrooms? I don't know how many of these guys are out there, but for God's sake, get out of the closet. Live as a free person. It's supposed to be a free country. You'll be shocked at how much you love it. That way you could actually expose your genitals to people who want to see them.
Right.
As opposed to random dudes in bathrooms like, hey, look at this, surprise.
Oh, terrible.
Okay. For the Sirius Satellite Radio audience, we have nothing but love for you guys, but we are out of time. So we do the show live 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on tytnetwork.com. We do have a couple of quick stories left for the audience online, so stay with us. We'll do our bye-bye at that point. And everybody remember, last week for free trial membership of a whole month, so go to tytnetwork.com/join. If you missed any of this show, you can catch it all there. And remember, put in the promo code FREETYT to get a whole month free. Best time to do this right now. Okay, we'll be right back, guys. Isn't the last break your favorite one? It's shout.
Super short, yeah.
My favorite part of the last story was how obsessed I was with figuring out the mechanics of how he rubbed his foot and how he showed up his genitals. Because I'm thinking about the stalls and I don't get it.
It means that he's done it before. Like, that wasn't the first time he's done it. So think about how many people have been victimized by his, penis flashing.
Yeah, people have been victimized by his penis. Anyway, and sorry, I had a little bit of projection there myself when I was like, maybe you could show it to him this way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love that you're assuming that he's, gifted.
Okay, all right, anyways, I'm such a clown. All right, what's next?
All right. There's only one abortion clinic left in the state of Kentucky, and right-wingers in the state are fighting tooth and nail in order to shut it down. Now, this has been a long battle and a long fight in the state. There are evangelicals who have been protesting and intimidating women who show up for their appointments. And it got so bad that at one point a judge had to get involved. A federal judge got involved and had to create a buffer zone in order to protect the women who went to that clinic. Now, things continue to get bad, and the protesters are planning on showing up to the homes of these abortion doctors to protest there, which I would say is another form of intimidation. Now, there's more details to this story in the CBS report. Let's take a quick look at that and I'll give you more.
Abortion opponents started gathering at churches in Louisville over the weekend, gearing up for citywide protests. Evangelical activist Jason Storms and wife Sarah brought their 8 children with them from Milwaukee, along with a firm belief.
We have the wholesale, legalized, protected, tax-subsidized killing of little human beings in the womb. This, to me, just is deplorable.
The group he belongs to, Operation Save America, calls Roe versus Wade a covenant with death and wants to close down the clinic, the last remaining abortion provider in the state.
This is exactly why this matters.
Kentucky's abortion landscape is changing. Republican Governor Matt Bevin publicly opposes abortion, and the GOP-controlled legislature has passed new restrictions on abortion. In May, nearly a dozen protesters were arrested for blocking patients' access to the clinic. Storm says they plan to be peaceful this time.
Well, there's certainly not going to be any violence on anybody on our side.
One of their activists told me that they don't espouse violence. Do you believe that?
No. Anna Hola has been the clinic's director for 17 years.
How do you feel about being a target?
It's offensive because these people outside believe that they have monopoly over God.
So watch the whole video in the link below in the description box. Great report by them.
Yes.
So look, an abortion doctor was killed in his own house by people who thought he was committing murder of innocent babies. So there they are talking about the murder of innocent babies, and then they say, we're gonna come to your house. Are you insane? How is that not intimidation? And so if it had never happened to an abortion doctor and all they ever did was peaceful violence and they went to people's house, that's still wrong, okay? because you're going to their house. I mean, it's doxing on a meta level. But knowing that the last time people went to people's houses, somebody got shot in the head.
Yep.
This is crazy. And instead of the government in Kentucky protecting the people who are under threat, they're doing the exact opposite by encouraging and stoking the people.
Which is why the federal judge had to get involved and create that buffer zone in order to protect patients who wanted to get to that clinic. But look, we've gone over this reproductive debate, reproductive rights over and over and over again. So you guys know where we stand on it. But what I always find so fascinating is this notion of Christians being persecuted in the country, right? Like, Christian persecution, freedom of religion is under attack, religious liberty is under attack. No, it's not. Here's the thing, you're evangelical, cool. You wanna have 8 kids, cool. You wanna be like the Duggars and have 82 kids, awesome, okay? That's your life, do you boo. You wanna be miserable with a ton of kids, that's great. But guess what? I don't wanna have 8 kids, right? And guess what? You don't get to dictate how many kids I have, whether or not I can have kids, whether or not I can have, reproductive services available, reproductive health services available for me. That's your religion. You get to live your life the way you want to live your life. I get to live my life the way I want to live my life as long as I'm not harming other people. Who are they to tell us what is and isn't moral in our own lives? You have your version of morality, I have my version of morality. In my version, it's just uncalled for to get involved in women's lives, in women's vaginas, in their uterus, and tell them what they can and can't do with it. How about don't worry about me and you do you. Take care of your 8 kids.
Yeah, so they remind me of course, Muslim fundamentalists. Muslim fundamentalists tell you, you can't draw the Prophet Muhammad. No, dude, you can't draw the Prophet Muhammad. I can draw anything I like.
Exactly.
Because I'm not Muslim. You can't have an abortion. No, dude, you can't have an abortion. I'm not Christian. I don't believe in the same voodoo you believe in. So it's supposed to be a free country. We're not a theocracy and we're not run by your fundamentalist vision of your religion. And by the way, knucklehead, read the Bible, Numbers 5:11 through 31. God is pro-abortion. You're even wrong about the thing that you are so adamant about. Like, oh my God, God tells me to intimidate you and every once in a while to shoot you because I'm pro-life. No, he doesn't. God is in favor of abortion. Your whole identity is based on a lie. So that's fine. You want to delude yourself and do things that make no sense to other rational human beings? Do it in your own backyard. That's why it's great that it's a free country.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care. Unlike you, I'm not in your business. Have 28 kids and believe that the Bible says things it doesn't say. It doesn't matter, I don't care. I want you to be free. That's the difference between me and you. I will fight for your freedom. You want to take our freedom away. Oh, because it says in my Bible. But we're not run by your Bible, we're run by the Constitution. And if you don't like it, get out because you are un-American. At the very core of America is that freedom to believe anything you want. We shall not establish a religion. And if you don't like it, go join the Taliban because you would be very welcome there.
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
I just like when I look at that family from that video, it's like Joe Schmo and his 8 kids, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, they're fucking miserable, man.
No, that part.
They want us to be miserable too. No, just kidding. I mean, maybe they're super happy. I mean, how lovely would life be if you had 8 kids to take care of? That'd be fucking awesome.
The kids look cute. God bless them.
No, the kids are great. I'm not saying the kids are bad.
I know you're not saying against the kids.
No.
Maybe they do love it. Maybe they do love it. God bless them for being able to afford it too.
Yeah, taking care of kids is tough. It's just tough because you're responsible for a human being, right? So if you have 1 kid, that's tough. If you have 8 kids, that's even more difficult. I would be a mess if I had 8 kids.
I know, they live a different lifestyle and bless them. Just stay the fuck out of our lives, okay? Anyway, tytnetwork.com/join to get the post game where we will vent more. But lucky for you, last week of it being free for a whole month. So promo code free TYT. Bye-bye.